you look at things like Confucius and some of those Eastern philosophers and stuff like that, there's so much that has been passed down to them. And then so much of the history we have is because we did something fantastic enough that we... All right, welcome back to another episode of the Joe and Doug Show. We're pumped that you're with us. We're back. We missed you on Tuesday, but we're here. It's Thursday, and 46 degrees out today here in Youngstown, which was wonderful.
I haven't been out there.
Spring.
It looked nice.
Felt like spring. I caught it on my way home before I came here.
All right.
So
it's nice to have you back.
Yeah, it's good to be back. Spent a couple days at the water park with the kids and Ministers Retreats. One of our favorite events that we get to go to with the kids, although this year logistically it was a bit different with some of the COVID restrictions. But nonetheless, it was a couple days of hanging with the kids and the missus and
Can't beat that.
The team and stuff. It was good. Pastor Mike got engaged, which is
Good
really cool. We were super surprised by that and very excited for him and Ashley. So it's good. Your week good? He said
Excellent.
Today is awesome.
Oh, killing it.
Good.
Firing all cylinders.
Good. Well, we ordered some Chinese food. This is where the segment is gonna shift here. So the fortune cookies are never really tasty, but the fortunes inside are always fun. And my daughter opened her fortune cookie, and this is almost like maybe riddle or joke of the week. But it said, if a turtle doesn't have a shell, is it naked or homeless? That's a fair question. It's very existential. And I'm like, that's not much of a fortune. No. But yeah. So two quick things I want to hit, and then we can jump into what we want to talk about. So the lottery's crazy. Somebody hit the $550 million Powerball, and there's $750 million for the Mega Millions on Friday. And everybody's very... oh, could we win? Could we win? What would you do if you win? And you and I have talked about this before, so it doesn't need to be a whole segment, but I often tell people, like, when I come into money, I will do exactly what I'm doing right now. I'll just be more free to pursue those things that I'm extremely passionate about. I won't have to be bogged down by worried about, oh, did we pay that bill or this bill? You'll have the freedom to go and really pursue those things. And so why not exercise that freedom now and chase those things?
Absolutely.
100%.
Because it creates that. Like, you don't understand where you can do that right now and create the same conditions.
100%. I was having this conversation with a couple different people, and the idea that passion is the thing that leads you. Like, if you burn for something, do it, whether it makes money or not. I was saying to someone, like, every job I've taken, I've never asked the question of finance or time or whatever. It just always felt an extension of me. And so, like, I'm passionate about this. Like, I'm not like, oh, well, this part of my job's work and that part's fun. And no, like, all of this is what I want to do. And if I didn't want to do it, are there parts of your job you're like, I really don't like that part of my job, or I'm not skilled at that part of my job, but I feel passionate about those things. And when you do that, you don't even feel like you're working. And then time slips away and you're like, wow, I'm never sitting around like, well, I've worked my 40 hours this week, time to go home. Most of the time you're working in abundance. So.
Yeah. And just like we said, like, giving, I've never seen anybody go broke over giving. Yep. I've worked with hundreds of people who went bust, right? And not a single reason was because they chased something down that they were unsure of. Never. It's always a vice, always that they succumb to, stopping, scared, whatever. But it's never been what we're talking about here, which you just saw something in your brain and you worked towards it and it was a little risky, because most of the time, 100% is going to be awesome, and you usually get to like 90%, and it's still awesome.
That's true. It's very, very true. So everybody's pumped about that. And I this is going to sound super weird, but my dad used to play the lottery all the time. From the time I was like Graham's age, like 6 or 7, I can remember him pulling up at 7-Eleven, handing me a $10 bill and be like, get me $5 in the Mega Millions and a gallon of milk. And I would go in there and buy a lottery ticket at 7 years old. I mean, he'd be sitting in his car and would send us in for it. But yeah, that's always, whenever the lottery rolls around, starts hitting the news, it just reminds me of my dad because he used to play all the time. And never won, but we played a lot.
Well, here's my theory. Like, Ryan and I was sitting in a restaurant the other day, and we were waiting on our food. It was just he and I, and there was a little lottery machine over there. So I took out a $20 bill and put in a first scratch-off ticket, and we scratched it off. And, like, in my head, I'm like, okay, here's what I'm going to do if we win, and here's what I'm going to do if we don't win. I'm like, I really hope we don't win, because I want his experience of you put money in here, and it just goes away, right? And so we played like $80 $20 worth of these tickets, 20, 20, 20, all losers together. But in my head, I was like, if we win, I got to be able to do this so that there's like a moral to it or there's a story to it. And I was still kind of unsure what I was going to do at the very end. But yeah, I'm glad we lost. We went broke.
Yeah, the only time Sam and I ever won the lottery was we got a bunch of scratch offs at our wedding. Someone gave us like a package of those, and it was kind of cool. And we went to Wegmans. We were in New Jersey, went to Wegmans. Have you ever shopped at a Wegmans?
No.
On your adventures with Gus the Bus, it's probably my favorite grocery store. They have like a whole like section, like Giant Eagle tries to do it. Some of these areas try, but they have like a nice section where you can like sit down and have lunch, and they do sushi, but it's not like supermarket sushi. It's actually decent sushi, if that makes sense. And they, the spread is kind of nice. They have a section where you can drop your kids off to be watched while you go grocery shopping. Like it's pretty nice. It's well done. And for the longest time, they had one up where we went camping in New York, and then they started spreading out. But anyway, we went to Wegmans and got a couple things, and then we went over to ShopRite. ShopRite was our kind of main deal. It's kind of the Giant Eagle of the East Coast. And we go in there, and I go, ooh, we have those scratch offs with us. We should scratch off and see if we win. And so so I go over, and I don't know, our grocery bill was like $200 or something like that. And I go over there and I scratch off, and I'm like, oh, we won $15. I scratched off like 8 cards, and we won $15. So I cashed in $15. And I said to Sam, I was like, well, $15 is kind of house money. We should play again.
Good idea.
And so I pay for 3 more of the same scratch offs, and then get those back. And I'm like, all right. And so we scratch it, and I win $30 this time. I'm like, okay, let's keep the 15. Now we've won the 15. Now we're really playing with house money. And we ended up, I stood there, we played 6 times in a row, and I kept winning, and we paid for until I lost outright, and we paid for a whole grocery bill.
Beautiful.
And then we never played the lottery again.
All right. Well, that's good. It's a good experience to go out on.
Yeah. We knew it was, fun and goofy, and obviously with gambling, there can be addictions and all that sort of stuff that are attached to it. But like anything, there can be addictions, and it was just fun, to get that. I don't know. Every once in a while, I've gotten them for my birthday or something like that. Somebody will, hey, here's, $5 scratch offs or whatever.
Were they already scratched off? Because that's
have you ever seen the prank ones?
No.
There are prank ones that tell you win, and people go nuts. They're like, $5,000. They get all excited, and then on the back it's like, sucker.
Your friends suck. They're terrible.
But no, it's good, and I think it's a good season. And I think the way I want to talk today, I don't necessarily want to go down the lottery path, but I want to talk about having a lottery winning life that doesn't have to play the lottery.
Okay.
All
right, I'm down with that.
Because I think the way I'm feeling about my own life, the season I feel like our church is entering, the way I'm I feel all in areas, and I feel good about being all in, to use that kind of terminology. And I think so many people are waiting for the stars to align, or waiting to win their scratch off, if you will. They're waiting to dive in, and they're going to win the $750 million pot on Friday. When in actuality, they could get up today and choose to scratch off their lottery ticket and win today. And I just feel like I've just been in the zone. I've been at the gym. I didn't go to the gym while I was on vacation, but I did at the retreat. I did swim a couple days, so I hit my workout goal according to Apple and my watch. But I feel like I just feel really good in this season. I know you were saying you're kind of feeling the same way. And I feel like certain things have just been easier. Mm-hmm. Things have come more naturally. And I'm able to get up every day and look at that and look through that lens and realize that, like, hey, like, not only am I going to win, but I deserve to win. I position myself to win, and we're going to win. Yep. And when you play that way, changes everything. Sure. Because even if you get dealt a 2-7 offsuit, to use a poker analogy, right, you get dealt the worst hand, you're still like, I'm good. Like, it doesn't phase me, the cards that are in my hand. Right. It doesn't phase me, the surroundings that may be there, the scenarios, this person or that thing. I'm like, we've got this. Like, this is going to succeed. Yeah. And when you play with that type of certainty, the game of life, it changes the way you make decisions. It changes the way you advance pieces on the board. It changes the plays you call, and everything in between. When you play not to lose versus playing to win, we've talked about that before. It's just a different dynamic. So you feel like you're in a good season. Yeah. How do you create that, or do you identify that?
You create that.
Okay.
Yeah, and so, it's intentional for sure.
So how are you creating that feeling? Because I know we've talked about this a little bit, that we're both feeling like you text me on Sunday and said, I feel like we're just in sync and not the boy band. Right. So, I feel that way at church. I feel that way in life right now. And I know you kind of feel that way too. So I wanted to talk about how do we create that atmosphere? How are you doing it? And I'll talk a little about how I'm doing that.
It's all frequency. And I play a really simple game with this. If you're controlling yourself and you have choices of who you hang around with and who you have in your life, and you say, okay, I want to run a marathon, and my example of a marathon is someone who's run one. And if I want to run a marathon, then all I do is, how do I set my frequency? I just emulate what they do. I'm not going to say I'm the exception and I'm going to eat ho-hos and they eat celery, and somehow I'm going to run a marathon. So I live in that simple strategy. Well, okay, I'll add to that later, but you're newer to this. So, I mean, I take a lot of stuff for granted that you're just opening your eyes to right now.
Well, I think, I know for me, you talk about frequency and rhythms and that kind of deal. I think for me, the greatest thing that I have done is be consistent every day with my mindset. I may not hit it out of the park every day with my actions. I may not hit it out of the park every day, but my mind is going to be pristine and focused on what I need to do.
And your language has improved.
And my language has improved, and I'm recognizing those things, and it makes it easier for my actions to follow. They're not always perfect, but I'm not getting caught up. Like, for instance, we at Kalahari had two goals. I didn't want to have any regular soda, and I didn't want to hit that candy bar deal up and really do that stuff. The only sweet I had, I split an ice cream with my son. That was it. He really wanted ice cream. We split it, and I threw a piece of it out, and it was very intentional that I threw a piece of it out because I've never done that before with anything sweet. And I got to the cone part, and Grandma's like, "You finished it that fast?" And I was like, "No, buddy." I said I was all done, and I wasn't. I wanted to crush the rest of that, but I said to myself, you know what? This thing doesn't control me. I'm going to throw the other half out, even though I wanted to eat that piece. I had a diet soda, but I didn't dive into the regular soda like I would have in years past, because I'm like, oh, like we're at a resort, so I can throw all of my goals out the window or whatever. And I felt like I did pretty decent on that front. I didn't track my calories. I didn't go to the gym. We were swimming though, and I said to myself, when I get back, I have to hit it. Now Jed had a baby. I don't know if you saw. Full head of hair.
I saw
cute
that.
Baby. So my gym buddy's going to be out of commission a little bit in terms of he's got to do dad stuff and hold baby and that kind of deal.
You know that like your goal is not predicated on those actions. Like your mindset transcends like those two 100%. Actions. Go ahead.
So I got up today and I started with my vision board. I hadn't seen it in a couple of days because I've been away. So there's some things that were fresh that jumped off there, and I got my mind centered good. And I showed up at the gym and did my elliptical for 30 minutes and got a good sweat in, and came home, showered, and got on with my day. But it put me in the right mindset. And I think I'm learning so much that mindset and what I choose to hear, what I choose to surround myself with, determines words and actions. And if in the past, I would have focused on, well, I had to change this action. So I'm going to behavior modify. I'm going to try and not eat this, and I'm going to try and not do that, instead of focusing on, well, where do actions get produced from? Well, they get produced from what I'm hearing and what I'm thinking and then what I'm saying. And so many people start at the other end, try and fix the action side of things. And I'm finding it so much easier for me to go to the gym, to say no to certain things, to throw out half an ice cream, to not drink the ginger ale, that sort of stuff like we've talked about, because my mindset and my hearing have shifted, and I stay on top of that. I don't worry about the action so much. Right. I don't beat myself up like, all right, yeah, I had half an ice cream with my son. I could beat myself up for that and be like, you should have stayed away from all the sweets or whatever. But I said, you know what? I'm going to use this moment. I'm going to teach myself this part of it, and we're going to keep going because my mindset is in a good spot.
Yeah. And the other simple rule of like when you get to the end zone and you celebrate, you're telling yourself that you're surprised that you got there, right? And so when you operate, it's the other side. So there's some anti-celebratory moments where you've got that I messed up and I didn't get there. So you have to do the equal thing. You have to pass those up as equal to those celebratory things.
Yeah. And I think too, when you put yourself in the right mindset, God puts those signposts along the way that even when stuff doesn't align right. So like Jed and I didn't go to the gym together, but I went to the gym, and then our trainer was there that we see, and he's now been coming to church, and he came over, gave me a pound, and said, "Oh, it's good to see you this morning." I was like, "Oh, that's right." It was what I needed before I got over to the elliptical machine, and like God knew that I needed that encouragement because Jed and I will get on there and talk the whole time, and so we're in that rhythm, and it goes by quick. So I brought my wife's AirPods, and I was like, "All right, I'm going to get in the zone. I got a podcast on. It was not the same." But that little bump in the beginning was like, whew, there's the endorphins I needed. I got this.
Yeah.
And so I find that when my mindset's in the right place, when I'm focused on the right things, the other stuff comes to get me over the finish line.
Yeah, and it gets delivered to you against your will. It just kind of happens. Now, okay, so back to the original statement here. There's a lot of what we work on that is it's a frustrating thing, but it is also the biggest blessing that there is. So think about it this way. So you use law of attraction, which means that you repeat certain things in your head, right? Yeah. And you repeat them over long enough, your intuition tells you what to do, and then you get the thing in the end, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't do it like on your first ask. Like what if you're mad and you do an ask thing and it's like magic and it delivers you? You're kind of glad that there's this slow fuse that burns until the thing's delivered because it gets you a time to like arrange yourself. Yep. You win the lottery, and the reason so many people hit after it is because they didn't arrange themselves. They weren't prepared for it. They don't know how to have it. And that's why it goes away just as fast as it comes. So you got to deserve half the shit that gets delivered to you, and that time that it takes to get there makes you responsible for it.
Yeah, it's almost like you don't get an NFL contract the day you start playing football. Like you have to position yourself. Exactly. You have to go to the gym. You have to meet the right coaches. Like there's so much that has to align in that process, and 90% of it starts in your head when you're 8, and you've worked your way that you finally get delivered that contract at 20, 22, whatever it is. And very few people get to that stage because it's such a long mental game. There's so much mental to be played in that. In most successful things, there's the long haul mental game, and you play over a 20-year period and not a 1 year period. You
don't take a super skinny person, watch him eat one ho-ho and end up being 400 pounds, right? It just doesn't happen that way.
No. It doesn't. I met a guy at the gym. I think Jed's going to have him on soon, and lost 185 pounds, and then had skin surgery and ended up being over 200 pounds. He has a lifetime forever membership at Planet Fitness. Kind of wild. But he was on the Stairmaster one day, and Jed knew who he was and introduced us. And I think Jed's going to have him on his show to talk about food addiction and that side of things, which I think is going to be really cool. But, went over again. We had just gotten done working out. We were on our way out. He goes, I want to introduce you. And just gave me a couple words of encouragement. He's like, just keep showing up. He's like, that's what I did. He goes, I was 400 something pounds or whatever. And he goes, and I just started. And I said, I'm going to show up again tomorrow and show up again tomorrow. I didn't always do it right. Didn't always do it perfect. But here I am, however many years later. And, to see that and to hear just a little bit of encouragement again is fuel for the fire to go, all right, this doesn't happen in January. This might happen 2023, but I just have to keep showing up from now till then. I have to keep stepping into that. I have to keep my mental focus right. And so often the area that we beat ourselves up in, some Christians would say the enemy, the Bible says he's the accuser of the brethren, that his job is to accuse. And so that's what he does. And he puts things on you that don't belong on you, and then you repeat them, or you put things on yourself, and I can't do that. And then it just takes your mental game off. And so it's so important to renew your mind and get yourself to that place of, man, I'm just hyper focused on this, and I know that I'm going to get this right. Not I think I might, not I should, or maybe it'll happen this time, but like that's mine, and I'm just going to stay on it. So we started out talking about how we create that kind of, you know, you talked about, you don't just fall into it, but you create that kind of atmosphere for yourself. I know that you're going to be coaching one or two people that I care about at church, and they've mentioned to me that they're trying to step outside their comfort zone. I'm going to be very interested to see. That's a big
step. It really is.
How this kind of progresses. So how do you take somebody, what's the first thing, you know, somebody is, they don't believe themselves or anything else. They have some confessions that they may make, but they really don't, they're not translating into their life. You know, for 15 years, I had certain beliefs that I probably should lose weight. It'd probably be a good idea, but I feel that focus right now. What's the first shift you make for somebody like that? For the skeptic, I know you like dealing with skeptics.
Yeah, love it.
What's one of those things somebody who's listening is like, you know, you can focus on it all you want. You still got to go to the gym and do the work, and you know they're going to go to that negative town. What's the first thing you do to help them shift? Is there a small thing you tackle?
No, you let them go down that road, because comfortable people don't make decisions like this. They don't. The more comfortable are, they're not going to listen to anything I have to say. They're going to want to dabble at the buffet and complain about what's in front of them. You got to be at your wit's end. You have to decide that you don't care if it's fake or not. You got to do something to change, and as long as it doesn't hurt me or somebody else, you're willing to do whatever it is. Now we're talking a language, because I'm going to give you simple instructions when you start this. So let me give us an example, and this is without naming names, but this is someone who at least 5 times in one conversation told me that they're going to go to jail, right? At least 5 times. When I'm out of here, I'm going to jail. And I'm sitting here thinking about it. This guy.
Well, I guess I'll come visit you.
Right. And I was like, do you know that you don't have to go to jail? Well, what do you mean? You don't have to go to jail. The language that you're using right now is that you've pre-populated. Do you want to go to jail? No, of course I don't want to go. So why do you think you have to go to jail? Well, I did the thing and I'm going to go to jail. I didn't show up at my probation thing and I'm going to go to jail. I was like, here's the thing. Let me teach you something. This is what we do. And this is one of those people who are like, when I tell this person what to do, what do they got to lose?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's really
Desperation is a great thing for change.
For sure. Yep. So I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to picture that right now you need grace. You need someone to let you out of this. Okay. And all you really have to do, your case that you have to plead, is you have to formulate this so that justice is served, right? What do you think justice is? What do you think you have to do? You didn't show up at a thing, right? So what do you think you have to do? He went, I have to go to jail. Like, he was still in that. I've still got to, serve this thing out. And I said, no, you probably embarrassed some people. You probably made some people mad. Like, if you got embarrassed, what would you want someone to do to write that, right? Say you're sorry, write a letter. You got to picture a guy that's about to receive some grace from other people. Picture what he does and go do a bunch of that and keep doing it until you get to that day. Worst case is someone who's pissed off at you already is going to receive a bunch of I'm sorry letters and be pissed off for whatever reason, right? And you're no worse off than you are right now.
No, that's so good. And I do think for most people, I think you touched on 2 things there: comfort, and that idea of desperation. Like, when you're in a spot where you got nothing to lose, why not take a swing? Why not take a try?
A cynic is just going to fulfill that, and they're just going to experience whatever they wanted to experience.
I often make the quip that preachers have made for many years: there's never an atheist in a foxhole. Like, when the bullets are whizzing by, everybody's praying. They may not know who, but everybody's praying. And in the same way, when you get into a desperate situation, the willingness to change increases. So let me ask this question. Sure. Do you have to, now I know at a certain level you won't, but is it important to create desperation for people to change? I know, like, when you're changing vision in an organization or you're changing directions in a company, they say you have to create, enough desperation to move in one direction that people will surrender and give up the comfortableness, because until the pain, I'm going to butcher this quote, but until the pain of change is less than the pain of staying the same, people stay the same.
Right.
And so you almost have to create a desperation to get out of the current situation. And so you have to formulate a vision, a plan, a strategy that pulls people out of their comfort. Otherwise, why move?
So the cases where you're desperate are easy because their
Right.
why is they've got no other choice and what you got to lose. The ones that are comfortable, your why has to be different because you're not going to pull yourself out of a measurable thing enough to know whether or not anything's working. So if you're like me, where I'm in a constant state of improvement, where I take things that I'm unhealthy about and I try to make them healthy. So I'm in the pursuit of health. Well, I can get on board and people can get on board if all we're doing is chasing down to make ourselves a little bit better than we were before. That's a really achievable, measurable thing.
Yeah.
It's not as profound, but it's at least doable.
Well, and I think the thing that people struggle with is they often hear the desperate change, the person that is on their way to jail and all of that's what makes some of those addict stories that we've been hearing and telling at church so powerful because they had nothing, they had nowhere else to go. And the cynic hears that and says, well, of course, they could have gone the way of so many others and just gone to jail. They got lucky, they got whatever, and we'll position that in that way. And so that they'll blow it off. Do you think comfort is the greatest killer of change?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Not even adversity or
even
challenges.
People who know that they're doing themselves harm, they fear losing what they already have, so they're not willing to like invest in fixing the thing because the thing is usually smaller than the good things. Like they'll always kind of rationalize and say, well, I'm really complete in this area, even though I got a hemorrhage cancer over here, this one's pretty good and I'm not going to sacrifice this one for the sake of this one. That's really what you got. But if you can figure out a way for someone to work on the thing that's hurting them, like they know it, they feel pain for it, they know that it's there without like giving some comfort on the other thing sometimes, but usually not. Yeah.
I've heard people say this adage, and maybe you could speak to this a little bit.
Sure.
They'll say things like, well, forget about your weaknesses, just triple down on your strengths. The idea that, you may have this area that's hemorrhaging over here and you may have this, but that doesn't matter. Just go all in on your strengths. Is that a good philosophy in this case? Or
how do you... danger philosophy. Like if you're super ambitious, that works really well. Right? If you are not ambitious, think of it like this. So everything in our health decays, like if we're not paying attention to it or working on it. So you're over here and you're straightening something else. What you're not looking at is piling up. And so when you turn around, you're going to have a pile in a different department. And that just is frustrating because it seems like you're never done. Clothes get in a pile over here and dishes get a pile over here. So you're just going around. Your whole life is then been committed to sorting laundry and doing dishes. And to excuse the metaphor, but you kind of get what I mean.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. I think though the people that push that narrative, the triple down on your strengths, screw your weaknesses, a lot of them are in a hyper sense or hyperbolic sense saying those things because for them they live just in their strengths. Like you look at some of these entrepreneurs and CEOs that have these empires. Well, of course all you have to do is this. You've worked your tail off to be in a spot where all you have to do is speak or all you have to do is those things. But as an entrepreneur, sometimes you're cook, bottle washer, you got to do it all. I think you're starting to come into a season now though that you probably speak to where you don't have to do it all. You can kind of pick and choose and do the stuff that you really feel best at. And that gives you the freedom to do that. Is that a fair assessment of kind of the season you're coming into? So when somebody finds themselves in that entry level season where they feel like, man, I have to do everything and they have their hands in all this stuff, it can be a bit overwhelming. And they look at somebody like you and they go, well, he does the radio and he's got his own studio. And, of course he can say, to focus on this stuff, but I have to do everything. I don't have time to focus on my dream. I'm just trying to survive. How do you navigate that, right? Because the people that come and speak at the conferences and the conventions, they've all been doing it for multiple decades. Right. They all have personal assistants and they've had success. And then they come and they talk about how they got from there to here and their success. And everybody goes, oh, I want that. It happens with pastors all the time. The average church in America is like 85 people. Most lead pastors are their only staff member. They may have a part-time secretary, but most of them are doing the bookkeeping. Most of them are, doing a little bit of everything. And the idea that you can bring, a guy into a conference who has a church of multiple tens of thousands of people or something like that. And they're like, well, yeah, of course, you show up and preach and you got people running cameras and you got a personal assistant that gets your latte for you. Like there's a little cynicism that's added to that when the vast majority of business owners, pastors, whoever are sitting there going, well, what the heck do I have to do to just be in my strengths or to just step into that? So what do you say to those that are in that spot where they just kind of feel like they're running from fire to fire and they got to
well, let me respond and remind you this question because I'm going to forget about it when I answer this question. So I'm going to bring this full circle around to the whole lottery thing. So picture and this is the hyperbolic, the put all the thing on your strengths. When you illustrate it like this, it seems like a really flawed plan, which if it works, it's an amazing plan and you're a genius. But if it doesn't work, which it's not going to, is what you want to. So, a wide receiver in the NFL, right? There are 1,000 jobs playing football professionally that pay a person enough to make a living off of. And there are probably 1 million jobs, right, in football that don't pay enough to put food on the table. So if you spend all of your time getting really good at being a pass catcher with the intention of being one of those 1,000 people, there's a good chance that there's going to be a letdown in your future, right? And if you're well-rounded where you create health in multiple departments, I could go and put a lot of my effort into pass catching, and if that doesn't work out, there's still something else of equal value that I was preparing myself for, to be multidimensional in how you develop. And if you're single dimensional, then you're almost stuck doing whatever it is that ends up working out or not, and then regretting it.
All right, so let me push on that a little bit.
Yes.
So do you think that success begets success? So in that, somebody like Shaq, right? My kids will have never seen Shaq play basketball, but they'll know him from Buick commercials. They'll know him from because he's successful. He's Shaq. We listen to him, but they don't know why he's successful or whatever. And ultimately, like he was a good basketball player, and that gave him success and trust in other areas.
It's true.
And so that principle is true. So becoming insanely good at one thing can open doors in another arena.
Well, let me spell it out and see why that happens. Like we talked about, you can start acting like you have $1 million, and which fetches $1 million because you take those pressures off of you. You stop caring about the things that keep you from doing what you should be doing. Those defenses that come up that keep things sacred, they happen because of the pressures of losing those same things. So when you have success, you worry a little bit less that that's your only option, and then you're able to relax and do what your bad people still experience bad things. So if you if when you put the pressures down, they go out there and do stupid is stupid, right? But that's the answer is you remove those pressures and you remove those values. Like if you want to go be a pass catcher and not care about ever collecting a dime, you have a better chance than the guy that needs to go collect a dime.
And it's so interesting how money can be a hindrance to really pursuing your passion. There's so many people that will settle for a good job. It puts food on the table. I don't have that much stress or pressure. And I guess it really comes down to what your ultimate goal is.
Sure.
It's not wrong per se to have your ultimate goal to be, Gary Vee says this all the time. Like if your goal is to make $75,000 a year and you're happy with that and it gives you more time to be with your family than working for $250,000 a year, well then work for $75,000 a year and be happy with your life. But don't complain to me that you don't have $250,000. There's a cost to that.
Exactly.
And I think for a lot of people, they want their cake and to eat it too kind of deal. They don't want to put in the work to have the life that they want, or they want, this space or that space to do whatever. And I think you can have those things, but there's always a cost to pay. You and I talk about that. And so that cost may be whatever, but you're going to have to pay the toll to have that thing.
And you would be surprised that there are about a 50% shot, or 50% of the people are one way or the other. Some people have been tamped down on their expectations so much that I have to push them this way because they're just settling. They're not, they're doing it for whatever. And then there's people on the other side that I got to push in the other direction because
they're in la la land.
Yeah, exactly. They need to be more rigid about their expectations.
So which do you find more difficult?
Both are equally as, I'd rather take someone who hasn't decided yet and, give them information and let them decide than people have already predetermined that everything I'm going to tell them is scary or everything is too conservative.
Yeah. I think I find more people on the bottom end of that are cashing in their expectations to make ends meet. I find more people are satisfied living beneath. They're not out in la la land. They may wish they were out in la la land, but they're like, well, this is reality. This is where I'm at. And they just settle there. And that makes me want to throw up. I'm just being honest with you.
Well, here's
when I get with that, I'm like, come on, like you gotta want more for yourself, for your family. I mean, there's got to be something that drives that you say tomorrow can be better than today. And when I get somebody that's like, nah, I don't know what to do with that. Yeah. Like it frustrates me.
If you were in this meeting, this would have been driven you crazy. I pictured you when I was talking to this kid, 26-year-old kid, just graduated from college, got a business degree. He's nice and academic, got the credentials now. He was able to put together scratch, got about $40,000 or $50,000, and he wants to start a business, right? So he sits down at the table with me and he was like, I want to start a business. I'm like, okay, cool. He gave me everything he was ready. I was like, oh, you got all of the foundation to start a business. What do you want to do? I don't know, right? Okay, what are your interests? I really don't have any. So service or product or whatever. And I was like trolling, fishing a little bit. Tell me something here. Yeah. I want to start a business, right? And for an hour, I talked to this dude about trying to come up with.
And he graduated from business school, right?
Yes, some idea of how he wanted to flex that muscle, and he couldn't do it. And he got frustrated with me by the end of the meeting. Says he's just going to go back to school. He's just going to go get some more education. And I'm like, okay, so we're meeting with the addicts, right? We say put some of your dreams up on a goal. It takes them 30 seconds to put every idea under nobody told them they could or couldn't do anything. And it's plastered everywhere. And you got this dude that could probably accomplish anything and could put anything on that piece of paper. Not a starting point, not an ending point, nothing.
Yeah. Do you think some of that has to do with wiring? So I've come across this teaching recently, and we're actually bringing a guy in from our network office to teach our team on this. But he talks about the 3 different types of leaders. You have strategic leaders, which are your visionaries, and they're always strategy and dreaming. Your tactical, your tacticians that figure out how to make that strategy a reality. And then your operational leaders, those that go and execute those things. And what I find is the operational folks, like asking them to dream something up and they'd rather die. But you give them a to-do list and they buy into your vision and they will be perfectionists and execute on that. And the tacticians are your translators. They're taking my Spanish dream and turning it into English so that the operational people go, oh, that's what he wants done. And it really, for me, is helping streamline a bit of my process because I'm on the strategic end of things. And sometimes I dream in such a way that the operational people all get agita and get very nervous because I'm throwing out big things. And for them, that's too much. Yep. And, or I'll come in and I'll throw out ideas that I'm not married to, but I just thought about it. I'm like, oh, that'd be pretty cool. And they're like, well, wait, what are we going to do that? And they're immediately thinking blueprints and, they're going to execution because that's their natural bent. Do you think the young man that was sitting there was maybe more a middle manager that just needed to execute? He's not an entrepreneur, or do you think he had entrepreneur in him? He's just got to strike. Well, let me
tie this into the previous previous topic. So the dude just went through 6 years of academics where he probably felt really good about his station and how he compared to the rest of the people. He obviously had a job that was good enough to put $40,000 or $50,000, so he was still kind of living. And everything that happens next represents risking things that are really comfortable right now. Yeah. He's going back to school because school made him feel really good and really smart and to be at the front of the line. And being out in the real world, nobody's going to give him anything. He has to go now risk everything that's important to him to maybe get something that he can't even think of right now, versus the guy the addict that has nothing, he'll go wash dishes, and that's better than wherever he's at right now.
No, that's so interesting. Gary,
and I'm not mocking this guy. I mean, no, sorry,
I totally understand. Gary Vee does the whole thing. Like, education doesn't mean the market doesn't care what degrees you have.
That's right.
The market just cares that you offer a product or service that other people want. That's all it cares about. So often people go and get degrees and think like, oh, well, now the market's just going to do what I want. I'm like, that's not the
college
case.
Makes you feel really smart and really good. Like you can go out.
You're in a bubble.
That's it.
And you don't realize that. And that's true for pastors. That's true across the board. You live in this Christian bubble and everything you do is Bible. And then you get out in the real world and you're like, well, I got people getting divorced. I got this going on. I got that person's got this problem. And you're trying to lead a whole group of messed up people to do something crazy, in the community for the Lord. And, it's like, well, this wasn't in my textbook.
Yeah. Well, and it was interesting. You started this whole thing off with, I am willing to all in, put it on red. There's no prevent defense. This isn't like I'm holding anything back. Everything that's on the horizon, I believe in. Yeah. And so there's no reason not to put all my resources behind the stuff I believe in. I mean, that is the most powerful approach that I've ever seen.
Yeah. No. And when you do that, it disarms fear. Like when you make that call to push everything in the middle of the table, that's like, well, I'm either going to win or lose now. Like when you're holding the chips back, that's when you're afraid. When you're holding the chips back, that's when you're counting what everybody else has. And that's when you're, well, do I have the right hand? Whatever.
Devices.
As soon as you push it in, it's over. Like, I made the decision. Now it's like, let's ride.
Yeah. And when your doubt comes in and say, well, I'm going to do this, you're like, I don't give two shits.
Yeah. I already pushed it in.
Too late now, buddy. Right. Yep. And it stops talking at you when you get to that point.
Yeah. So how do you deal with indecisiveness, right? Because some people have that analysis paralysis. They're going to overthink and rethink. And do you just, we're going in, whether it's a good decision or bad decision, just because I'm not going to let that decision control me? Or do you just hit the pause button and go back? And
I mean, it's really important that somebody be an authority in your life. And usually it's probably should be you, right? Mm-hmm. If you're a good decision maker, if you trust yourself, then you can do things. I don't think that anybody who mistrusts themselves needs to be wielding the power that affects other people at all until you trust yourself. And I usually tell people to make these little mini decisions and go with it. Trust your intuition, try to follow the orders that you put down on a piece of paper, audit yourself like you were a third party, and punch yourself in the mouth a bunch of times if you screw up. And until you've done a cycle where you've done that so many times, you just know that what you tell yourself you're going to do. Now it's time to start playing and dabbling in real world. Yeah.
I think 95% of the time when I get someone that calls me and says, oh, Pastor, you have a minute to talk, I have to make a big decision about a job or relationship, whatever it is, 95% of the time they come into my office or I'm on the phone with them and they already know the decision they need to make. Like, and it is abundantly obvious to me. They'll start in and within 2 minutes, I'm like, you already know what you need to do. Like, I understand you want me to tell you. I was like, but you know what you need to do and you need to go do it. Because if I tell you to do it, then I become the source for all your decision making and I'm not going to do that.
Right. They want to outsource the authority to you.
Well, and if it works out, oh, Pastor, you're the best. If it doesn't work out,
why the hell did you do it?
Exactly. And so I don't put myself in that position if I can help it ever. Most of the time I may ask them a few leading questions that maybe they needed to shore up some confidence on to help them discover some stuff.
Because that's the real deal there is they don't trust themselves to make the decision.
Bottom line is you already know what you need to do. And sometimes I get it. They're big decisions. Like, this is going to tilt your whole world. But you're sitting here telling me this and like, you know what you need to do. And so like, even like with counseling and stuff like that, when people go see a counselor, like most of the time the counselor doesn't do anything miraculous. He just literally goes, you know what? This globe is round. Let me show you it from the other side. And you go, oh, I mean, genuinely, you're staring at a mountain from one side and you're going, I don't understand how I can't see this angle. And then, somebody takes it and rotates it and says, well, because there's stairs over here, buddy. And you're like, oh, those sort of things, those moments. And I love watching the light bulbs go off for people, but I would say most people know what they need to do. They just don't trust that they know what they need to do.
But that's the confidence builder is that this does not take a third person to come in and say, pat you on the back and say, it's going to be all right. It means that you trust yourself by having some evidence that you're trtrustworthy to yourself.
No, 100%. Totally makes sense. Well, I think we need to make some people uncomfortable. And so I hope that those of you that are watching, if you want chance to be on the show and coach through some stuff, we'd love to do that. If it's not something you want to put on blast or publicly, I know we'd even take a call privately and be able to help you navigate that. Joe loves to do that. I love to do that. Whether it's business, personal, spiritual, doesn't matter. We want to help you become the best version of yourself. And so we appreciate you listening. We'll be back here on Tuesday.
All right.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. If you like our programming, we invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow our Facebook page, or subscribe to your favorite podcast platform like iTunes or Spotify. This is original Youngstown content, and we would appreciate you sharing the videos and the word about us.